Good Tuesday morning, guys, and thanks for checking out your latest long-range forecast update. Michael Clark here with BAM Weather. I wanted to give you kind of really just a spot check, where we're at in terms of what we're looking at for the season ahead. Where are our thoughts with everything, right? As we get into the next couple of weeks, as we get into May, we get into the growing season, what are we thinking, and what does our latest outlook have to say for that? So I want to get right into it. We'll make today a quick touch on where things have been. This is a look here at kind of our temperatures to start really the year. We've seen this warm east, cool west kind of look here. Now, over the next several weeks, we will see a big dent in that as a much colder, cooler than normal pattern settles in. In terms of precipitation here, just over the course of the last 30 days on the left and the last 60 days on the right, we've started to see a little bit of a trend towards a wetter look here. I'm going to move this up to the top left right here. So you can see in the last 60 days, or I'm sorry, we've seen a little bit trend towards drier. My apologies. Last 60 days, we've seen, adequate precip, normal to slightly above normal precipitation. In the last 30 days, we've seen a little bit of a drier pattern, and that's really been due to probably some of the cooler weather that we've seen. Now, the colder air, it's going to come back. It's here, and it's going to be here for the next couple of weeks. In fact, it could be here for some time. Some of the indications are suggesting that May might be quite the cooler month overall. This is week 1 on the left, week 2 on the right. We'll continue to see these temperatures run significantly below normal here over the next several weeks. Precipitation, well, it's pretty dry week 1 here across the central U.S., at least. It'll be cooler, but it'll be drier, so maybe the potential here to get out into the fields is certainly going to be possible. Week 2, it's a much drier forecast overall, so the precip forecast will allow for some work to possibly get done. The caveat is that on the other side of the coin is that we're not looking at any evaporation happening here, as the temperatures are going to be pretty cool, right? So beyond week 2, let's start talking about the May forecast. We have indications that our global winds will dramatically speed up. Our angular momentum will go positive, an indication towards perhaps slipping into an El Nino of some sort here by mid to late summer. The indications in the short term for the strong positive AAM or the increase in global winds would suggest a big signal for cooler weather in the month of May, and potentially wetter weather in the central and southern plains, which could be good news for some of you guys out there, especially in the central and southern plains. Possibly a drier signal. The question becomes, listen, where exactly does that set up, right? Is it wetter down through here? Is it drier a little bit further south? You have to look at the give and take here. This isn't going to nail exactly where that pattern is going to be, right? But the indications are overall there's a drier setup to the north and possibly a wetter setup to the south, with a much cooler than average forecast in place for the month of May based on that research. When we look at our European weekly data, this data just came out last night for the latest. It's a cool forecast. And again, it's a divide here in terms of the precipitation outlook. Like I said, this is generally a drier forecast here, but wetter in the central southern plains down into the south and east. Similar to where we're going to go with our official forecast a little bit. And again, this is we can't take these maps verbatim. I think the general theme here is dry across the north, wetter perhaps across the south. Exactly where? That's difficult. But here's our official forecast. We think it's an up and down month overall. It'll start colder, and it could trend more seasonably warmer mid-month. The biggest struggle in the forecast, I think, overall is the precipitation outlook, like we've mentioned here. Is it possible that the central and southern plains cash in on some moisture here based on some of the research and the modeling? It is. The question is can it? Based on persistence, based on what we've seen, we leave it equal chances for now. But it wouldn't shock me, I guess, right, if we saw not only some precip here, but even towards the second week of May, it's possible in the central and western plains, maybe even an enhanced severe weather outlook or risk there for that period. Okay, listen, the drought the drought conditions, they continue to indicate it's obviously incredibly dry in the central U.S., in the south central U.S., what we just talked about. Can there be some relief here? I think so. Are we chiseling away at the drought versus last year? Absolutely. Seasonal indications would suggest that we may continue to slowly drift into a pattern that may help eliminate this drought, right? That may help precipitation come back. Latest CFS monthly computer model data says it can be wetter than normal where the drought is the most intense right now. So there are some indications of that. Okay, we're not going to go all in and say, yeah, we're going to bust it and we're going to get really wet here, but it's not out of the question that it may be possible. All right, so some of our seasonal signals that we're monitoring right now is that, hey, we've been in a La Nina since mid-2020. The last 3-year La Nina was 1998, 99, and 2000. Major warming is going on in the eastern Enso regions, and the far eastern region here is among the warmest on record, indicating probably the onset of an El Nino, a weak to maybe even a moderately strong El Nino if you ask some of the latest model data, right? So we are certainly seeing a big change. You look here, 21 at the bottom, 23 currently. We're seeing a pretty big shift in the equatorial Pacific sea surface temperatures. All right. La Nina, overall, it's pretty much come to an end here, right? We watch the equatorial temperature anomaly, the depth of the water, the loop of this overall. We can see a dramatically warmer look here from early February now through mid to late April. And again, in my opinion, a strong indication that an El Nino is coming. You look at the model data, all right? A couple of things to confirm here. We've never had a fourth-year La Nina. It's never happened. So we're coming out of that third year. Indications are we're not going to go into the fourth. Every model we have says El Nino at this point. Okay, every model that we have access to says an El Nino to possibly a strong El Nino is in the cards here, mid to late growing season. The caveat or the wild card would be June here, depending on kind of how quickly that can evolve. A couple of indications other than the Enso state that we're looking at to help us with that is the aridity index. We have found that over the last several years there's a strong correlation between this index and what happens with our summertime precipitation patterns. You can see a great correlation here to the 2022 and the 2021 with how precipitation went April through August when we look at the previous November through February in terms of the overall winter aridity index maps. It's just the difference between the high temperatures and the standard deviation of the precipitation departures. It's, what's the spread there, right? Easiest way to describe that. Here's the current aridity index. What this would possibly suggest, in a nutshell, right, is that we're awfully wet in here. We're awfully wet. We probably have variable precipitation in through here. Perhaps through the summer season, it might get drier down in here. Bottom line, we don't have a dry signal. We don't have a big heat signal. And we're seeing that. As El Nino looks to possibly evolve, our analogs, our Enso evolution analogs suggest a cooler and wetter summer is certainly on the at least on the docket here. At least it's possible. The biggest risk, the biggest thing that causes us to question the summer outlook at the current point in time is the Pacific ocean temperature pattern. It does pose a hotter and drier risk. When we look at those, we see that the March value is currently negative. This will be the greatest concern, and I think it may carry the most amount of weight early summer into June, where we haven't really gotten into, let's say, an El Nino yet. Maybe more so by July. That could lead to a warmer, drier June in some parts of the growing regions, especially the central plains and the western plains, for perhaps a warmer and drier risk for the month of June. That would be in the start of summer. As El Nino continues to set in, it's likely that cooler and wetter risk may prevail, which is what our outlook has right now overall. The preliminary summer forecast says, hey, we're going to be cooler than average overall. There may be a few periods of warm weather and a few stretches of dry weather. But as we look at this overall setup, it supports fronts that can bring some cool air and some precipitation with it. And I think when we look back on this summer, we'll notice variability in the rainfall patterns. We'll have some dry periods, we'll have some wet periods as of right now, right? That's the current indications. Can there be some spots that end excessively wet this summer due to the onsetting the strong El Nino potential? Yes, there can be some spots that might be really wet. Where exactly, we just don't know yet. It's still April, but overall we're favoring a cooler summer for much of the growing regions, right? Right now, corn yield analogs suggest we're going to have an above trend line corn yield. Based on cooler temperatures and wetter weather patterns, years that have been similar to this, the indications are corn will probably be pretty healthy this year based on a weather forecast, and the soybeans would be right at trend line, okay? A good soybean crop as well as the current indication. So that's a look at our latest thought process in terms of, what we're thinking here for summer, looking into May, looking into June, July. If we had to, again, put an idea to this, is June carries the greatest risk for warmer and drier spells, if you will. If you think about the last couple of summers, we get hot and dry the first 2.5 weeks of June, and then rain comes the 20th of June, and it gets cool. Or at least rain comes and wipes out some of this stuff sometimes. It's kind of interesting how that works. Regardless, that's the thought process. We wanted to give you our latest take on it. If you have questions, reach out to us. Have a great day.